Welcome to the Professional Women's Podcast, where ambitious women meet total well-being. I'm your host, Dr. Peggy Gleason, creator of the Mindful Eating Approach, conquering emotional eating and transforming your relationship with food, your habits, and we want to make sure we can enhance all areas of your life. We always offer inspiration, education, and motivation. So make sure to check the podcast notes for a very special guest after you listen to this podcast. But today I am honored as I can be for our next guest, Cheryl Boon. Now, Cheryl is a certified health coach, and this is really cool. She's certified in toxicity. I'm reading this, so bear with me. Toxicity and detox. She's a practitioner who's been professionally guiding women since 2017 with a personal health journey that spans over 35 years. After overcoming her own struggles with lupus and rheumatoid arthritis, she became very passionate about helping women over 45 who are dealing with chronic symptoms like fatigue, brain fog, gut issues, and autoimmune challenges. She specializes in helping women uncover the real reasons behind their symptoms by focusing on what's happening at the cellular level. Oh, this is so exciting. Through education, nutrition, detox strategies, and supportive coaching, she helps clients restore their energy, clarity, and vitality. Her philosophy is simple. Age does not define your health. Oh, aren't we all happy about that? And you're never too far gone to heal. That's even better. So she reminds women to listen to their bodies as they whisper so they don't have to feel them scream. She's here to help women feel seen, heard, and empowered to take back their own health. Oh, my goodness. Cheryl, welcome, welcome, welcome. And I am so excited to hear all about you and your practices and get the wisdom that you hold in that beautiful brain of yours. But I want to start out with, how did you get started with this? Tell me your story.
Hi, Peggy. Thanks for having me here. And I'm so glad to share things because there's so many things that women need to hear that are not hearing from their doctor. And that's what happened with me when I had my third child, like back in the 80s, when the doctor said, here's the pills. And, told me I couldn't don't eat onions and hot dogs. And I was like, oh, and never thinking about nutrition because back then, like back in the 70s when I grew up, we didn't have all that chips and I mean, we had soda and cookies and stuff like that, but it wasn't like you ate it all the time. And soda was to us was only on special occasions. So when here I have three kids. I came down with rheumatoid arthritis and lupus. I couldn't even carry my baby up the stairs. I had to have my 6-year-old carry the baby up and down the stairs because my husband worked long. And so I started looking into healthy foods and there wasn't a lot about organics back then, but there was about steroids and antibiotics in our meats and I started, going more vegan and stuff. So, I was able to get better and I was doing fine. And then all of a sudden, all the Facebook came around and you have these lupus and, you know, women's groups that they don't know that, they want diagnosis and they're taking so long to get into the doctor's office. I'm like, well, that happened 30 years ago. Why is it happening now? And
Exactly.
why aren't these people, these doctors learning about nutrition and cellular health? So that's, I started helping people with their diet because that's the way to start as far as diet. And not really looking at the chemical toxins. You know what I mean? Like we need to clean up our diet, but there's still, you need to learn about chemical toxins in the food. So people were losing weight, but that doesn't mean that they were not going to have some problems with autoimmune. So
Or
I started, studying and researching, and I mean, it just, to me, I love to learn, and so I kept learning and kept getting connected to other people, and came across a doctor that did the cellular health, and I was like, oh, I'm going to try this detox. And so I learned so much from the doctor and my coach, and um, what it like a lot of people, like I was saying, like you change your diet, but that doesn't mean you're not getting the chemicals. We have to stop the chemicals from coming in our body. And
exactly.
with detoxing, it's not like, oh, let me do a colon cleanse or a liver cleanse or whatever. If your body isn't ready for the cleanse, it's not going to help. Um, you can
Very
re
true.
you can recirculate those toxins and feel worse. So, I don't know how much you want me to go into it, but I was so excited to learn a way that I could help other women. I say autoimmune. Really, autoimmune is not a disease, it's a symptom. So doctors put all these names, you got Hashimoto's and MS and fibromyalgia, lupus. These are all symptoms of the root cause of toxins. The toxins are creating these symptoms. And that's like, I like to say, listen to your body when it whispers, because your body is always speaking to you. If you have
That's
a
so true.
headache or you're tired, your body's saying something's wrong, we need to fix it. And if you have too much stress, trauma, in your life, and it all builds up, that's when you're in fight and flight mode, and your body's not able to take care of
It
it.
is,
So,
it is so true. Everything you're saying is so true. And it's uh I have to admire your strength to investigate, to learn, to grow from it, and now to help other people, which is marvelous. And kudos to you. That's amazing. Um, with the detoxing, when you're working with your clients, what do you find? There's so many things, I'm sure. But what do you find the most common offender is in their diet?
oh, the prepackaged foods.
Okay. Okay. So why don't you speak to the audience a little bit about what do you mean by that? What do you mean prepackaged foods and what's in there?
So, the natural way our body digests is eating fresh foods. I mean, you can buy frozen foods that are good, but our body's used to real food. And when you buy prepackaged foods, most people just look at what the protein or the sugar or the salt. They're not looking at the ingredients. And a lot of the ingredients are toxic chemicals. You've got your dyes in there, and anything that says natural flavors is not natural flavors.
No,
So
it's not.
it is toxic. So what happens is our body's, taking in the food
Mhm.
that is prepackaged and the chemicals. It doesn't know what to do with them. It's digesting and using, I always say our we should treat our bodies like an expensive car. If we could do that and we put in the right amount of stuff, we clean it, we make sure the tires are inflated correctly. We make sure it's got the right fluids, which is, our water. And if we could treat our bodies like an expensive car, we would be fine. But when we put in things like imagine, putting in a bunch of junk into the gas and the gasoline, what is that car going to do? It's just going to die. It's not
Of
going to
course.
function. So these toxins, even like sugar, for instance, there's like over 70 names for sugar.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
now, some of them are good. I mean, you've got, real maple syrup or organic syrup. You've got real honey. There's things that you can use for sugar, but you don't want all these um, additives and, t chemicals. So, if you're reading, in fact, I was at the store today, like reading the label, and, even when it says organic, it doesn't mean that everything's in there organic. And the if it's got more than like 10 ingredients and then you can't read them, it's not something, it's not natural in your body. Another thing to look at is, um, and this might be gross for some people, but it might help people, is if it has water in it, look where it is made. Okay.
Ooh.
So just say it was made in Flint, Michigan. Do you remember the story about the water in Flint, Michigan?
Oh,
So they're using regular water to make these products. So it's best to buy something with filtered water. Like I was looking at I wanted some almond milk,
mhm.
and I couldn't find an almond milk in the G store. I don't want to say the company, but I couldn't find one in there in the Promise. They have a organic Promise
Mhm.
section in Giant. I don't usually shop in there, but I was actually out. But I didn't buy one because I wasn't going to compromise. And I'm not perfect. I'll eat things,
Yeah.
but I know that I could go to another store and get a better product, type of thing. So.
That's such an important tidbit of information about the water. Look at where it's coming from. That's really remarkable information for everyone. Um, and this leads me into other questions about toxins. My biggest is Splenda and all of those artificial sweeteners. I have always used stevia, pure stevia, but I want you to tell the audience what is in there. What is in all those artificial sweeteners that we want to stay away from?
Well, you don't even want to take them. I mean, there's so many different ones. I mean, even stevia, you want it organic. I mean, some people do monk
Absolutely.
fruit as a sweetener, but I try to make some baked things once in a while, and I'll, try it with like the monk fruit or the stevia, but most of the time I'm either using honey or
Mhm.
maple syrup, depending on what it is. But yeah, it's
But what
they're
makes
cancer, they're acidic, I'm trying to think acidogens, like I can't say it
that's
right.
okay.
Carcinogens, and it
Carcinogens,
is
yeah.
it can cause cancer. So, and people say, well, it's only a little bit. But the problem is, if you looked at your diet for the week, not just your diet, I mean, everybody's diet, and look at all the different chemicals that you're putting in. So there's no studies on multiple cancer-causing chemicals. Do you know what I mean? They do studies on individual. Water is a terrible thing. Everybody should filter their water, even if it tastes good. Like they say, oh, the town I live in, it really tastes good. Well, it's gross to think that that water that comes from the sewer is reprocessed, is
Mhm.
processed and cleaned up. but they can't get all the drugs that are in there, meaning the antibiotics, whatever's passed through us into the
Hmm.
toilet, um, is still in, some of it's still in the water. I remember a when my dad passed away, and we had the one of the ladies from hospice, or I'm not sure if she was from the hospital, but she came over to go through my father's drugs, and she opened up every capsule and put it in a plastic bag and poured water in it. But what are you going to do with that? Where does it go? I don't know if it goes to a processing plant or whatever, but back to the water, there's still chemicals in there like aluminum, there's heavy metals in there. And our body is getting those heavy metals constantly. And what happens is they um, kind of, vaporize and go through the blood-brain barrier,
Hmm.
and they're in there. And that's what causes, dementia, Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
So, and when a person goes through a detox, in my program, we're working with the foods because you have to stop everything from coming in, right? I mean,
Yes, absolutely.
it's all educational, and it's not like in one day you have to do this. It's a process. Some people take 2 months before they can even get into the detox program because they need to limit things. It depends on where they are as far as health, but
Yes,
I have to start where their health journey is. Some people
exactly.
don't know anything, and some people are doing well and they're still sick. But the second phase is getting into the body detox. So you're detoxing for your before you're even really detoxing, you're open up your detox pathways. So your lymph system, you're strengthening your liver, your kidneys, things like that. And that's a 3-month process um,
Sure.
with the detox. And the good side effect is people lose weight. So
Yeah.
they're losing weight because they're eating better, but they're also detoxing. And then, when the client's ready, we go into the brain and do the brain detox. So,
That's important.
and then and the other thing before they can do a brain detox is they have to have all their amalgam fillings removed, which is, because so an amalgam filling has mercury, right?
Oh, yeah, you don't want that.
And when people chew gum, it vaporizes and goes right to the brain. Every time they chew, goes right to the brain. I mean, I'm a perfect example. I had no idea. Thank goodness I wasn't a gum chewer, but
I mean, still, but back in the day, that's all they used. That was
yes,
all they used. And
yes,
when you think about um, the boomers, you know, that was what was around when they were little, you know.
yeah.
It's a really important thing to recognize, especially with the increased rates of Alzheimer's and other types of dementia. It's a really good
Mhm.
point. Um, what if you were going to, I'm trying to think, because you've covered already such important things. If somebody came to you and said, okay, we're going to detox your body, or we're going to, okay, back that up. Detoxing the brain. I want to continue on that end first because I think that was a point people aren't not sure about. Detoxing the brain, what does that mean? And then I'll go to that other question.
So when we're detoxing the body, we're taking certain supplements, and we're taking a supplement that makes sure that when you're detoxing, that you're not recycling the chemicals. Okay. So um what happens, it's a process of like say 3 days on, 3 days or 4 days off. That goes in week cycles. So as someone's in the brain, I'm sorry, in the body phase, and they're feeling good, and they feel like they can tell their health is a little bit better, they see progress, then they're taking some of the same supplements, but an added higher dose of it's called Cyto Detox.
Mm-hmm.
It's got other things in it that help go into the past the brain barrier,
Yeah.
the blood-brain
Well,
barrier. That's a tongue twister.
yeah, it is. It is. Say that three times real fast.
And so when we always say, you know, it's a month, but depending on someone's health history, it could be 2 years. You know what I mean? Like
Oh,
you
sure.
want to keep depending, the mercury. We do, and this might be one of your questions, like how do you know if someone's toxic? Like we're going after the root cause. And we've found that a questionnaire, extensive questionnaire of different things like family history, where they lived, um, just where they work, what their hobbies are, all that can can show what is going on. Like, yep, you've got mercury, you've got heavy metals, and you've got lead. So, and you've got the glyphosate in the foods. So,
Yeah.
um, it doesn't, you can't take a blood test. There's no good blood test to take for heavy metals. And it's the same, people go to the doctors and get a hormone test. They want to
Mm-hmm.
see, how they're doing, and the doctor will say they're it's fine, everything's fine, and they're like, I still feel terrible.
Yeah.
And it's because the the blood tests they do not measure what is needed to be known as far as what is going on. It's not always the hormones or the thyroid, I should say. It's a bunch of things going on that is causing this.
And I agree with you. Even on the basic metabolic panel today, they will only give you like a, a very brief. They don't test for everything, say a TSH, a T4 for thyroid. There are other tests that have to be done in conjunction with that to go down a little bit deeper.
Right.
And just like a lot of naturopaths order bloods very differently,
Hmm.
and they get a much deeper picture of what's really going on. Even, for instance, cholesterol. You might have a great level of LDL, the one that's you don't want to have a lot of. But if you look further, it's the size of those cells that are really the more important than just that overall number.
Right.
Smaller cells can get into the arteries a little bit easier than the bigger cells. So, when you look at it that way, it's very interesting. But I love that you pointed that out, because I think people need to know that, it takes a lot to really dig deep and see what's really going on. It's not your basic blood panels at all. It isn't.
Right.
Um, so that being said, it's interesting when I think of, wow. So do you send people to a lab? Is there a particular lab that you send people to get tested correctly?
Yeah, we have like protocols for different things to what they need to get blood tests for, and LabCorp, and
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a couple others that we can send people to. Yeah.
Yeah, good, good. Um, when you talk about where your toxins are coming from, I have uh, one thing that pops into my head is people who work in a dry cleaners. to me, that has to be the most toxic place to work because of all the chemicals in the air.
Yeah,
What do
it's
you
a
think?
shame. Even dentists,
Yeah.
have a high rate of deaths,
Wow.
sometimes by suicide, but because of all the chemicals that they work with too. It's
Interesting.
yeah, it's funny. I never was a mask wearer.
Yeah.
Um, I knew that people should wear masks, and I actually have a real estate background, and I did rehab, and
Oh, wow.
I loved buying moldy houses, right? So I know a lot about mold,
Oh,
but
wow.
I would have workers come in. I'd have a contractor that hires these workers, but they would come in and do different things, and some of them would put bandanas around their mouth, and I'm like, well, that's good, I hope that's enough, but some of
Mm.
them wouldn't. And I still see, I can't remember, yesterday I saw something happening. I can't remember what that was. But that I was like, why isn't this guy wearing a mask? There's reasons to wear it.
There sure
I mean,
is.
I
Absolutely.
have the philosophy that these masks that they sell have chemicals that you breathe in, but that's another story.
That's why I use cloth with an inside layer. That's not
Yeah.
going to go in.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That's very interesting. Now, if somebody comes to you and, you know, you send them to say they do have mold in their house. I love that you brought that up because that does seem to be something that people are confronted with after they've bought an older house. And all of a sudden they're getting some renovations done, and all of a sudden this mold is there.
Yeah, and they're
Um,
getting sick and they're having
Thicker, and they
sinus.
can't figure out what's going on. I had a client like that, and very, very ill. And where do you start with that? I mean, leave your house? I mean, what if you can't? You know?
Right. So the first thing is to get a mold specialist. And we have one in our group that actually like if it's a really a big problem, I mean, he travels the US.
Wow,
But
that's great.
his so I've gone through his he kind of had like a little certification so we know what he does and what to look for.
Hmm.
So I'll just give you a little bit of that. Um, if it's a problem and the whole family's getting sick, it might be, someone makes a mention like, how come you guys are always sick? The first thing is to do
Hmm.
is go around the house and check what is making us sick, especially, wherever water pipes are.
Yeah,
The back of the wash machine, behind the sofa in the basement, just if it smells musty. I mean, sometimes, the walls need to be taken out, but you can have a mold specialist come in and go through the house to see where it is. Well, if there is a major problem, and especially with black mold, because that's one of the worst. But there's lots of molds that are okay, but when you're dealing, if your family is sick,
mm, yeah,
it needs to be taken care of. So looking at that, um, even if they have to come in and repair, if it's a drip, to repair that, but you also want to take out the wall that's around it because you want to make sure that there's no mold inside. I had a problem underneath my sink, in my
oh,
kitchen, and I spent, the summer at the beach, and I come home and I thought it was my drain,
yeah, yeah.
but it was underneath the sink, it was dripping. And when I
Oh,
opened up that door, I could smell it. So I had
yeah.
the whole bottom of the cabinet taken out so
Hmm.
they could look under there to see like if the water had gone down on the floor where it had traveled.
Sure.
Luckily it wasn't that much. But um if there is, the bad mold because they can take samples of the air. And when you so if it is bad, you should go through a remediation.
Hmm.
You need to just say this is the worst case, okay? You need to get everything out. You need to clean walls and ceilings, ductwork. You might even need to get a whole new HVAC unit. You need to have everything, furniture cleaned. There's some stuff. I mean, they would know like what can be cleaned and what can't be cleaned, as far as, and that's the worst scenario. But some people think they can just get, the pipe fixed and fix that little place on the wall, but that mold will keep growing inside that wall if they don't get it all out. So, um,
That's really good information, though, because, so many people are chronically ill, have never even considered the thought that it could be something inside of their home. So
right?
this is wonderful information. My goodness. Um, you were saying in your little thing here, and I love this. Healing isn't about perfection, it's about the direction. And I want you to just highlight that a little bit before we get done, because I think it was a really impressive quote.
Yeah, people are all on a different journey. They're all on a different health journey, and it's not our fault that we are getting sick.
Mm,
We're not informed, and the chemicals are being put in our food, water, air, environment, pesticides, cleaning supplies. We didn't really talk about that, but our cleaning supplies, especially like laundry and stuff, I mean, that touches your skin. So if anything that has a fragrance that is a chemical, you know, that goes on your skin. I was a big well, not big makeup. I woke up in the morning every morning, put my face on. That's what we
yeah,
would
yeah,
say,
yeah, yeah,
putting my face on. Just, foundation,
yeah.
some mascara. I totally stopped that because um I just didn't want the chemicals in, trying to stop it. So it's we're not going to be perfect. We're every day we're hit with something different. We go to a party, you should enjoy yourself, but you don't have to eat the whole cake. You don't have to
That's
drink the whole
right.
bottle of wine, and it's, you know, it's you we have to think how where we want to be. We got to keep our health goals. So, I don't want to make it as, oh, made a little mistake and I had 2 glasses of wine. No, you enjoyed yourself that day and you want to go on. I mean, that this is life. But the less we put in, if we're working so hard every week,
Mm,
5 days a week, and we want to splurge a little on the weekend, it's not so bad when you are remembering, oh, let me just eat a little less of that. Or, there's so many good foods to eat. Um, Parties. I mean, I talk to clients about, if you're going to a party and you're like, oh, they're going to have hot dogs and hamburgers and all this stuff, just bring a dish that you can eat.
of
Make it big
course.
enough, for a lot of people. Make a dish that you like. Make a dessert that you like. You know, every There's not a host that's going to say, "Oh, you can't bring that food in." You know what I mean? Or
Right,
or
right.
call ahead, say, what are you, planning? Just make it
Absolutely.
easy, make something, bring something fresh. A host is not going to turn that down.
No,
So,
in fact, I think they'll appreciate it.
yeah, yeah. The more variety of food, the better. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, so
Absolutely.
our health journey is just it continues. It never
It
stops.
does. It
So
does.
having a healthier diet, and I like, some people don't like to say diet, but a healthier lifestyle,
Hmm.
which includes the foods we eat, the things we drink, And sometimes you can't, the areas we live in, we can't, we can't stop what the pollution and stuff that's out there, but
Right.
trying to get to the root cause and trying to get those toxins out properly will make us healthier and feel better. And one of my innovations is that when my kids started having kids, that my grandchildren, I wanted to be the grandmother that sat on the floor. I want to play with the
Hmm.
kids. I want to be able to get down there. I don't want to be the person sitting on the couch watching TV and waiting for the kids to come. I like to play with the kids. So I have 7 grandchildren from 1 to 12, and I'm playing whatever they want to do. I'm with them. So um, I'm happy. That was my thing to, be able to be a grandmother and still participate in the kids' activities and, keep up with them. I
Oh, that.
babysit them all the time, so
Oh, they're so lucky. They're so lucky, as are you. I think this is terrific. I know that you had something that you would offer any of the people viewing or listening to this podcast. Would you like to explain that?
yes, I have a sort of like a ebook that in fact I okay, so yeah, I have a small ebook in a PDF form called Your Detox, Your Home, Heal Your Body. So
Oh, love it.
it's um it's all about switching out products, you know, as far as beauty and health and house products, stuff like that. What these chemicals do. We didn't mention like formaldehyde in the
Uh,
furniture.
yeah.
Um, so it's all about being aware, where these toxins are, and try, it's known that when you limit these toxins or take them away, it's not gonna promote cancer, and we don't want people getting cancer, and a lot of these toxins are cancerous,
Yeah.
that and have to do with heart disease too. So
Well, the whole body is affected, that's for sure. Your
yes.
brain, your heart, everything, every single part of your body. But this is delightful. And I just want to let everyone know um, all the links to anything we've mentioned here today and to get a hold of Cheryl will be in the notes below the podcast. But in the meantime, if you want to just tell them what's the best method to get in touch with you?
Well, you could go to my website, which is CherylBoon.com, and there is a link on there for a 30-minute call.
Oh,
And
great.
and it's not a selling call. I'll answer your questions, give you tips on how to solve your problem or what your root cause might be. And if anybody wants to go from there, we can go through the extensive questionnaire. It's not so bad. But it really makes you think,
This is all, this is such an important first step is
yes,
to look at that, pay attention, look around your home, look around in any of the environment you're exposed to, just to know where to start. So thank you so much.
thank
I
you.
feel very, very honored that you were here today. And I know that anyone listening to this podcast today, you are learning things that you don't have any idea about most normally. So take heed to whatever Cheryl's been sharing. It's been wonderful. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you soon.
Thank you.
What if food wasn't the enemy, but just a messenger? You're not weak or broken. You have just been coping with emotions the only way you knew, through food. Stress eating after work, sugar cravings when exhausted, guilt after giving in again. Well, when you pause, breathe, and tune in, you shift from survival to self-awareness. You eat with intention, not impulse. You feel back in control. Healing starts with one mindful step, and I want to offer you a free access to my exclusive programs inside my school community, a supportive space where created specifically for professional women just like you, who are tired of the guilt, confusion, and the all or nothing approaches to food and body confidence. And here's what you'll find inside: courses that help you understand patterns and break free from emotional eating, and finally feel in control without dieting or calorie counting. Live group coaching and office hours to get direct support and personalized feedback from me. You'll also see workshops, challenges, and bonus resources on sleep, stress, mindful eating, metabolism, and more. A private community where women who truly get it, no judgment, just support. If you want to open your eyes to freedom from food, let this be the first step that opens the door. Let's work together and create a lasting peace with food and your body. All you have to do is join my Stop Emotional Eating School group by clicking the link below, where women are ditching guilt and reclaiming food freedom. Make peace with your plate today. Just click on the link, or it's professionalwomanswellness.com. I'll see you at the other side.